Welcome everybody online. And can I just say, boy, are you missing out. Hi, how are you, Edwin? You got your camera on, mate?
Yeah, I'm well. Sorry. I'll disappear.
Yeah, but good to see you. So welcome to the seminar for this week, which is going to be delivered by one of our WOW members, Mohan Thite. Mohan's got a broad range of experience in the area of HR, edits journals and all that sort of stuff. I'll just give a small advertisement because there's no such thing as a free lunch. Well, you're not even getting a lunch if you're doing it online. Food has been reintroduced to the WOW seminars. So fruit saves getting breakfast in the morning. So for those of you who are keen to come online, campus is open. We can make sure that you get a 1.5 metre sort of distance to make yourself safe. But we'd encourage people to start coming online. We've got a sort of a good audience here today, all the intellectuals of the university. So that'll add to the discussion and debate. Okay. That having been said, if you feel uncomfortable doing it on campus, the online version will still be available for you. Okay, without further ado, I'll pass over to Mohan and he'll take the session from here.
All right, thanks, Peter. Good morning, everybody. It's really good and refreshing to have a face-to-face meeting after nearly 1.5 years, I think. And I finally got a chance to wear a jacket on a chilly morning. And I'm really thankful for you guys to having made it physically to the meeting hall on a cold morning. So appreciate that. This is a project, one of the 3 projects that I did during my last sabbatical in 2017. And all happen to be in the field of IT. That's where basically my association and my research interest comes from. Since a paper has already been published based on this research, I was thinking what else I can do to add value rather than repeating things from the paper. So I thought, well, I will give some background to this research in terms of where it came from and the experiences we had, very interesting experiences we had in terms of data collection. So I thought that would kind of give additional background material to this research. The research positioning is pretty simple. How do high technology firms, quench their thirst for talent? As we all know, the demand for STEM occupations has been rising quite dramatically. In fact, I think it accounts for 2/3 of the increase in employment, in the last few years. So the demand is going up, but at the same time, we are also fairly well aware that there are genuine supply constraints, on a worldwide basis. So how do they find a solution? So here, the uniqueness of this project is that we have a multidisciplinary kind of focus on this common challenge. If you look at it from the human resource management perspective, we of course are well aware of the resource-based perspective, where we say that it doesn't matter how challenging the external environment is. If you have the right combination of people, process, and technology, you have a winning formula. And then the if you look at the international HRM literature, it talks about addressing staffing issues with expatriation, and particularly in this context, more of impatriation, getting people from host countries into the headquarters to address the staffing issues and so on. And then we have global talent management field that is emerging fast, where we talk about a combination of make, buy, ally, kind of combinations that talent sourcing managers resort to. So this is from the HR perspective. Then if you go to the international business management discipline, they talk about things such as offshoring, as to why offshoring has become such a big phenomena, and how it makes a perfect sense from a strategic perspective for firms to outsource their operations, including that of talent sourcing. And then if you look at demographic literature, people talk about skilled migration. If you look at the last 10 years statistics in terms of skilled migration, you see one common thing, whether it is Australia, New Zealand, Canada, US. India tops the list of key source country in all of these countries. So just by looking at different disciplines, we know that there are multiple challenges and multiple solutions being explored by different scholars, but in an exclusive fashion. So being an HR practitioner, we thought, coming from an HR practitioner background, I thought, now we need to really combine all of this and then see what are the lived experiences of managers on the ground who are tasked with sourcing talent on a real-time basis. So what this research is about is to focus as much on the external environment as on the internal environment. We all know that both have a role to play. We need to have an outside-in perspective as well as inside-out perspective. But unfortunately, most of the literature, particularly in HRM, is on a kind of a micro perspective. Even in international business, when they talk about institutional influences, they refer to it in passing, but they really do not pay attention to the effect of public policy, for example, immigration requirements and so on the ground. So we look at this problem from a global perspective because, particularly in the STEM area, talent has really gone global. Smart doctors, engineers, accountants can now, cross international borders and go anywhere, or at least till recently. And then, of course, there is a national context in the sense that the developed countries are, in a way, forced to really go up the value chain in terms of focusing much more on R&D, high value added activities, because the low value added activities are being outsourced to other countries, whether it's manufacturing or services. From the organizational strategy perspective, we all know that the creativity and innovation of the talent pool is the only sustainable competitive advantage for firms, and therefore they need to pay attention to it. But then when you look at it from the perspective of operational reality, the lived experiences of managers, then you see them being confronted with a multitude of issues. On the one hand, there is a business strategy that says that you need to recruit nothing but the top talent. On the other hand, there are real supply side constraints, particularly in the IT field. If I may enumerate further, because I said I will give more of a background than really talking about the research, because it's all there in the paper. When I was the talent sourcing manager for an IT company, it was really a challenging issue. For example, we would bid for a project in the US for which we would need 150 people with top skills before we could even make the bid. And I needed to get them, in about a month's time. And we would, resort to all kinds of things. I mean, I remember, distributing flyers in the, restaurants in the nearby area where we said, well, we'll give you 25% straight increase in salary if you come and join us. I'm trying to highlight here the lived reality of managers because, they don't go to universities and studied, human capital theory or whatever. They will have to provide them. And while I succeeded in getting those 150 people, we didn't get the project. But we had these 150 people on the roll. So they then sat on the bench, that's the typical IT parlance, where we had to somehow engage them in training and other activities until we got another project. So the problem here is that it is a project-based kind of human sourcing requirement. Plus, at different stages of the life cycle of the project, the requirements change as well. For planning and design, you need one set of skills. For implementation, you need another set of skill. Then maintenance, another, and then redevelopment, another. If you look at the PeopleSoft project in Griffith University, you know what I mean. When we executed a large version change, version 9, it's completely different requirement that we had. So that is the crux of the problem, that it's easy to say that the job of a talent sourcing manager is to get the right talent at the right time, at the right place, and so on. But the definition of right talent in IT changes so fast that what is hot skill today becomes a completely redundant skill in 4 years' time. Therefore, no firm can have a perfect solution. No firm can really solve this problem, on an ongoing basis, because the requirements keep changing all the time. That's why you need to have a global perspective on this issue rather than a local perspective. The time during which we conducted this research was the time, it's the height of MAGA, Make America Great Again stage. It was the time of Brexit. And it was the time of Make Australia Great Again as well, with the coalition government talking about restricting 457 visas and so on, putting Australians first or American first and so on. So everywhere there was a kind of pause in terms of globalization, and the forces of deglobalization were pretty strong. And the funny thing about this is, when the economy is doing well, nobody really talks about it. The borders open, talent comes in, and so on. But when the economy tightens up, then the trade unions will, rise up. The politicians will rise up, and so on. So what was good during good time suddenly becomes bad during bad time. So we tried to look at this problem in the context of deglobalization, and therefore the focus of the study was on how the external and the internal environment dance with each other, so to say. As far as the STEM talent shortage is concerned, there can be debate in terms of, we've got a lot of IT people, why are they unemployed? Again, the problem is it's not just the technical issues, but they also need business skills, what we call as domain expertise in the IT area. And that's one of the reasons as to why India is cornering 56% of the offshoring market, because they have really honed their skills over a period of time to such an extent that their domain knowledge across different verticals, that is industry segments, is simply unparalleled. Whether it's aviation, higher education, and so on, the kind of experience that they've accumulated becomes far more important than the pure technical skills. Here what you see is that across the Western countries, industry associations are really banging on the doors of the government, saying that, look, if you want us to fuel innovation, then definitely you need to keep the borders open, because we need talent in big numbers and in different quality mixes. So from the organizational perspective, what options do we have? One is, of course, make your own talent. When I was interviewing Professor Sandra Susher from Harvard Business School, obviously academics take a very long-term, sustainable kind of perspective. So why don't we take time to retrain our workforce? Do you think the American workforce is dumb? Obviously, they're not dumb. So why are we relying so much on foreign talent? Very good question. But if you ask, a manager on the ground, they will say, well, do you know how long it takes to grow talent? And even if I invest heavily in growing talent, what is the guarantee that the talent is going to stick with me? Right? I mean, because there is demand worldwide. So there is a cost and time prohibition in terms of growing talent internally. And then relying on national workforce. Now, again, there are structural issues out there in terms of education. Not many people in the Western world really wanted to get into the STEM field. And therefore, if you see enrollments in most of the universities, particularly in IT, they are foreign students rather than local students. So the local appetite for STEM skills is really not there. And that's one of the structural issues which the government need to address. There's nothing much the industry can do about it. So, all right. So if jobs are not there where the the talent is not there where the jobs are, then the obvious solution is let the jobs go where the talent is. So the key source countries for STEM talent is basically India, followed by China, followed by Brazil. So it's the emerging economies that are really producing. Now the solution is not simple. India might produce 3 million engineering graduates every year, but only 20% of them are employable. So it's not that, hey, there is a solution, you need talent, let's go to India. There is quantity, but not necessarily quality. So what we find is that, in terms of going overseas for offshoring, there are real issues. The cost advantages are really going away because the wages are increasing in this industry. Turnover is increasing. So they have real problems as well. And plus, these economies are growing by themselves as well. So there is tremendous demand for this talent in the countries where they are located as well. So that's as far as offshoring is concerned. Then when it comes to getting talent from overseas as permanent migrants. So we get talent from overseas either on short-term work visas or as permanent migrants. And the statistics in the last 10 years show that almost all Western countries rely heavily on Indian talent, particularly in the IT area, to get them as permanent residents. But there again, there are benchmarking qualification issues, cross-cultural issues, hostility by local workforce towards foreign labor, and so on. So there are many solutions, but they're all imperfect solutions. So we try to apply the theoretical lens of co-evolutionary thinking, which talks about, tries to marry what happens on the ground in terms of managerial intentionality versus what happens in terms of the constraints being posed by external forces, such as immigration policies and the preference of the government to hire local and so on and so forth. So how do managers try to dance in tune with the changing government policies, because the government policy changes all the time as well. In the process, do they try to influence the tune itself? Do they try to tell the government what tune to play? In some ways, yes. In some ways, no. So how does this co-evolutionary partnership approach works on the ground? So we had three propositions. One is that managers on the ground use their own strategies in order to achieve strategic objectives of the organization within the external constraints. Whereas the macro environmental situation, the governments want these firms to progress, but at the same time, they want them to hire local, which is a long-term phenomena and is a multi-stakeholder kind of perspective. So how the two of them have an dependency kind of arrangement between the three. So if you look at the conceptual framework, I won't go into it. It's essentially reflecting the propositions that I talked about. Okay, so in the research design, we focused on Australia, UK, and US. Why these three countries? Well, if you look at Australia, it's in a very peculiar situation in the sense that the point system that Australia has had over the past 20, 25 years is really regarded as a model across the Western world. Donald Trump talked about it. Boris Johnson talked about it, saying, "Oh, we need to adopt the point system of Australia." So UK and US, they all have STEM strategies, and they're all looking at the problem from a similar lens. So that is the common thread there. So we first spoke with 5 experts to really kind of identify the breadth of the problem. And then we went to the field and interviewed a range of key informants that included talent sourcing managers, outsourcing and offshoring service providers. We talked to IT consultants because they play a very, very key role, for example, IBM, in terms of executing projects. And then, of course, we talked to industry association representatives, including some of the IT-related trade union representatives. While we had these interviews, we thought that, well, the best thing to do is to get them together because they all have got their own perspective and they will push their agenda. Why don't we get them together and have a kind of healthy debate? And I thought, well, in theory, it would really work well. People would really love to come and talk about it. And they said, well, Mohan, yeah, I will talk to you one-on-one, but we are not going to come to a round table. We are not going to make our position clear. We might love foreign talent, but we're not going to say it explicitly. Okay, so we had real problem in terms of getting these people together, but still we managed to have 2 roundtable kind of focus group discussions, both in the US and UK. All of that was recorded, transcribed, and so on. So in Australia, I couldn't even achieve that. Nobody just wanted to sit together with a trade union representative and talk about it. So that was a real eye opener. But at the end of it, we had a good set of sample, and when we applied thematic content analysis, 3 key themes emerged: issues, challenges, and strategies. And then with the help of NVO, we further analyze the data. So it's basically qualitative data and an exploratory kind of analysis. Okay, so what did the results say? This is the kind of most representative quote that we can talk about, where how the managers try to really reconcile with the constraint faced by the external environment. In terms of achieving that optimum balance between the pressures put by strategic levers of the organization inside and the external constraints posed by the outside world, particularly in the deglobalizing kind of scenario. We have representative kind of examples on all the 3 propositions. In terms of managerial intentionality, it's a really challenging issue. Having lived that experience myself as the talent sourcing manager, I can tell you, it's a very, very challenging job being a talent sourcing manager in IT, because the requirements change all the time, the skill set change all the time, the project life cycle demands different set of people, and so. Talking about growing talent internally really does not make sense, because the talent that you have, becomes useless once the project is over. And therefore, you really need to depend on this kind of, service providers who can take talent from one place to another, depending on the need basis, and who are really proactive in looking 10 years ahead as to what demands are going to be there, and then train the workforce accordingly. So there is a heavy reliance on outside service providers. That's the intentionality part. In terms of environmental determinism, then obviously there have been a lot of visa-related issues, whether it is 457 in Australia or H1B visa in the US. Or the Brexit-related EU imposed kind of restrictions on UK. So they've all had a lot of external demands and clamoring by trade unions and other people. Why don't you recruit the local people, retrain them, and so on. So there is environmental forces there. And in terms of interdependence and co-evolution, a range of talent strategies, and none of them are perfect solutions. For example, in offshoring, many people go for what we call as captive offshoring, where you have complete control over the unit that you have established. It's a captive owned by you. But at least you use a local talent where you're located. But then there are cultural issues, there are language issues when you depend on a global network of forces. So I have some quotes from the results section. If the discussion takes us in that direction, I can talk about that further. So the conclusions are not nothing, groundbreaking or earth-shaking. What happens outside the organization is, of course, just as important as what happens inside the organizations. But I think the key take-home is that when we talk about talent shortage, particularly in the STEM areas, particularly in the high technology industries, it is a really complex, drawn-out, multi-dimensional kind of issue, and there is no one perfect solution. So we really need a partnership approach between the government, the industry associations, and the organizations to kind of address this issue. Because unless we address this issue, we really cannot keep up the competitive advantage that we have as an innovative and creative-driven economy of the 21st century knowledge economy. That's about it.
Thanks, Mohan.